Hello and welcome to another edition of Knickerbocker Banter. I'm your host, as always, Harris Wishard, and with me today, a pillar in the Knicks community, a content creator pioneer, and the biggest Knicks fan in the world. I hope that's not self-proclaimed. I know it's not. I see it on social media. Anthony MSG, Anthony Donahue, welcome to the program.
Harris, my man, thank you so much for having me, and truly thank you for that wonderful info. That was very, very kind of you.
Of course, man. And, let's get right into it. A thing I ask a lot of people that come on this show, and for you, it obviously jumps through the screen, right? Your love for the game.
Right.
That's always what I'm interested in. And when I say that love, I mean, for you, it's a capital L because of the passion. But I'm just curious where that came from. And, it started for you at an early age, but why not, baseball, football? Why did basketball, and why did you take it and run with it, and why the Knicks early on in your life?
Actually, to be honest, my first loves were hockey, football, and baseball. I knew I liked basketball before I ever went to a Knicks game. I had been to a few Yankee games. I had been to a Rangers game. I had been to the Ringling Brothers Barnum and Bailey Circus. To be honest, the first time I ever went to Madison Square Garden was in 1992 for the Ringling Brothers Barnum and Bailey Circus. Now, I knew I liked the Knicks, but like I said, my first few loves were the Rangers, the Yankees, and the Giants. Nobody in my family was crazy diehard Knicks fans, but I knew I liked them. I knew who Patrick Ewing was. I knew who John Starks was. I knew who Charles Oakley was. And then in fourth grade, I moved upstate to the Catskills, about 3 hours from the city. Kind of where you went to college. I'd say New Paltz would be halfway to get to where I spent ages 8 to 17. I was in fourth grade, and I was starting to get a little bit more into the Knicks. And then the playoffs started in 1993. So to date myself, I am 40 years old now. The spring of 1993, I was 9. The Knicks were playing the Pacers in round 1 when John Starks headbutted Reggie Miller. All that crazy stuff was going on, and I went from liking the Knicks to loving the Knicks in a matter of seconds, and it took over everything. It took over my body, my soul, my spirit, everything. And I went from the Knicks being my fourth favorite team, after the Yankees, Giants, and Rangers, to number one times a billion.
And that obviously, and you talked about 1993, I'm a little bit later on, but I've spoke about on this show that late 90s and the impact that team had on me. Now, I played the game and loved basketball from playing it, but that team, like to fall in love with a group, and you talked about guys like Starks and Ewing, and so to have that love, you get spoiled, right? And you see now, didn't win a championship, right? But
right, well, yeah, close. That it was
got close.
And one thing about sports is it's never guaranteed. Like, as great as the Celtics were, it wasn't guaranteed they were going to win the championship, and they did. Right. And in sports, and I said this so much over the last, especially from like 2001 to about 4 or 5 years ago, when the Knicks were just absolutely dreadful. I said, all you can ask for in sports is a chance to be there in the end, a chance to compete for the championship. And granted, the Knicks did not win a championship in those 90s days. That does stink, but it gave me memories that I will never forget. And also, I think, one thing a lot of people ask me between 2001 and 2021, right, when the team was just absolutely so bad, they'd say, why do you keep going back? Why do you keep going to the games? Why do you give up? And those are fair questions. And one, it's just not in me, which is the obvious answer.
Right.
But two was, I'm still searching for those feelings I felt as a kid. The feeling I felt when the Knicks beat the Pacers in Game 7 of the 1994 Eastern Conference Finals, when Patrick Ewing got up on the scores table and raised his hand, and when he had the putback dunk off the John Starks slant. I'm searching for that feeling when Allen Houston hit that shot to beat the Heat, and Larry Johnson had the 4-point play. And a few games later, when the Knicks won Game 6 of the 1999 Conference Finals to get to the NBA Finals, or the next year, in the year 2000, the Knicks went down to Miami and beat the Heat in a Game 7 to advance to the Conference Finals. I'm still remembering how I felt in those moments. I want to feel that again, and we were getting a little closer. We got closer to 2023, lost in 6 to the Heat. I was down in Miami for game 6. Well, this past year, losing 7 to the Pacers. We all know for damn sure if we didn't have the injuries we have, we would have won that series. Listen, we have the injuries to the Pacers. They won the series. But I am searching for those feelings I had as a child, and that's why I never went away. I was never. Of course, there's times over the years you get mad at the Knicks. Oh God, this team sucks. Is this team ever going to be good again? But I never gave up. Never gave up. And it's funny, so I was actually getting today in the Bronx over at Louie and Ernie. It's one of the best pizza places around. And I ran into something I used to play basketball with. I think his name is Jeff. I hadn't seen the guy in 15 years, but we corrected each other right away. Oh, we used to play ball with somebody goes, nothing's changed with you, and still an optimistic Knicks fan, huh? I was like, And then he said, of course, at least now there's something to be optimistic about.
Right.
They were back then, I was playing basketball at the park every day. The optimism was, can Stephon Marbury get us in the playoffs with, Jamal Crawford and Eddie Curry. Yeah. So the optimism now is nothing against Jamal Crawford, Eddie Curry, and those guys. Right. But the optimism now is way different than when I was being optimistic back in 2005.
Yeah, no, I feel the same way. You have a similar backstory in that I've been criticized for being glass half full, right? And we have a little bit more to be optimistic about these days. I remember being in high school and telling people, hey, well, maybe we can get the 7 or 8 seed and we'll sneak in. We'll upset
the 7 seed and we get hot.
Right, exactly. That was always it. But what I want to ask you, and you touched on a lot of good points there with your childhood of the Knicks, is you had that expectation, and then the carpet got pulled under you, and then you go through all that struggle, and that's why when you remember the COVID series against the Hawks, so much was coming together at that time. For me, I remember that so specifically. Obviously, COVID was wild, but it was the Knicks hadn't been in the playoffs since 2013, right? It was fans hadn't been allowed full capacity for that series. And it's like this. And that's why when people knock the Knicks fan for being out there partying, keep partying, keep going outside these playoff games and creating that energy and that atmosphere. There's been a lot of suffering going on here. I know it's not real life suffering, right? But it's, hey, we expected. I know when I saw 99, 2000, that was when I first got into this team. I went to my dad. I said, this is going to be great. We're going to do this every year, right? We're going to go to these exciting environments. So to have that back, and I left the building last year feeling that way, and I'm glad now this young generation, because as long as this Nova crew and Tibbs are around, I know what kind of level they're going to compete at. So I can't make any guarantees, hopefully you stay healthy, but to have that return at this level for all those years, and someone like you who barely missed any games, has to be a rewarding feeling.
No, it definitely is. And I remember, to add to your point, I used to work at ESPN radio, and it was, around 05, 06-ish. And I remember I'd always be talking to Larry Hardesty, and who's still on the air at ESPN now. And I'd always, before the season started, we would always say, let's just get to Thanksgiving and matter. Let's just get to Christmas and matter. And that's how it was the last, for a very long time is, can we get to Christmas and have the game matter? Can we get to New Year's and have the game matter? Can it be Valentine's Day and the game matter? And more often than not, the last 20 years, 23 years, the season was over by New Year's. You were still going to the games. You were still rooting for the team, but the season was over. So with this crew, there is a lot to look forward to. Nothing is guaranteed, as we saw this year, as with the way the Knicks were playing, especially after the OG Anunoby trade. It felt like I remember being at the game. Even I was at every game, but I remember being at the game versus the Heat on that Sunday afternoon on January 25th. And I remember I tweeted this after the game, and I said, this team can win the championship. And then, of course, the next, Julius Randle hurts his shoulder, and then OG Anunoby is out with the elbow. And then we were without those two guys basically for the rest of the regular season. OG came back with a few games left, played excellent basketball, finished the season, I believe, was a 7-1, finished the season. And like I said, nothing is guaranteed, but this team, as presently constructed, can absolutely win an NBA championship. But you got to get there. Got to get healthy, got to make the right plays, got to make the right decisions. But as of right now, as long as this team can stay healthy, stay consistent, keep the charisma, keep the great chemistry, this team has a chance to win an NBA championship over the next 5 years.
Yeah, no question. And you have a better memory. One thing when I've listened to your shows, I listen to some of your podcasts, I'm like, listen, I know you're passionate about the team. That's one thing. The memory now, the memory recall in sports for me is better than is everything in my life because I love it, but not at that level. Does that translate over to other areas of your life, or is it just
Yeah, it does. It does. So never lie to me. Never lie.
You'll remember it.
Yeah. So yeah, I have I don't know if you want to call it a photographic memory. I
Like
wasn't
LeBron
odd. What's odd is I wasn't good in school, but I can recollect a conversation in 7th grade outside a locker talking about, I don't know, Ewing against Shaq or something, or like, no, a 3-on-3 game in my friend's driveway in 6th grade. I can recollect these things so easily. It's very bizarre and sometimes freaky. And sometimes doesn't happen often. I'll have a friend saying, remember that one time? And I'll actually not remember it. And usually it's the other way around. Usually I say, remember this, and then the friend will say, oh, I don't remember that. It's very rare that happens, but yeah, it's all aspects of my life. I have this insane memory of just being able to recollect things like it was yesterday. The first time I met somebody, or conversation, or I'll remember is all I don't get hit in the head too many times. I remember Johnny texted me asking, sure, like I'll remember that 10, 20 years from now. It's just how my brain works. It's we're all gifted with something, but it asked me to screw a light bulb, but I can't do it.
Well, listen, it makes you very tough in arguments, though. Because, in basketball, when you could recall and people start bringing up points about, a playoff series or a specific game. I mean, obviously, you're a huge Knicks fan, but usually it helps, obviously, when you're passionate about it. But
of course,
for me, I was like, this guy, like I said, I was listening to some of those past interviews. I'm like, he's naming the starting lineup from 2000.
Yeah, and there's part
in 2005. And I'm like, this is great.
Other than the Knicks losing a lot throughout my adulthood, I've really lived a dream life, becoming friends with so many of my idols and my heroes. They're all in my phone. They're all a phone call away. But there's many times where it's Allen Houston, John Starks, Larry Johnson, Latrell Sprewell. They will ask me about like games they played in. That's fine. They will ask me about things that they did in their career.
Would little Anthony ever believe that?
No. Yeah. It's crazy, man. Like, for example, I got an event I'm going to this week. It's John Stark's charity event, and I'm helping out at the event. And I've known John now 20 years personally, but it never seems to get old. It never does. He's got, obviously the regular people as well. But I remember, I'm not gonna tell you a million different examples, but I'll tell something more recent because I've been doing this now so long. Being cool with my idols. It was Game 5 of the Knicks Pacers series. That game, ironically, I was hosting an event in a suite upstairs, and the night before, somebody hit me up and said, "Ant, I got one ticket for you if you want in the second row." I'm like, I'm hosting an event upstairs. I can't do that. I can't. So I called my girlfriend, Alicia, who's absolutely incredible. I said, yo, someone offered me a second row ticket for the game tomorrow night. It's like, it's a smaller event. Just go sit down there. Me and Johnny will take care of it, because Johnny was coming to the game too. So they took care of hosting, and I went up to the first 20 minutes, and I went down. So anyway, point is, it's halftime now, and I was by all the Knicks legends. John Starks, Allen Houston, Carmelo Anthony, Bernard King. I mean, everybody was there. And just about after they did a little photo, just about every legend saw me and was like, yo, what up, man? What up, man?
Yeah.
Stephon Marbury. What up, man? What up, man? And, there was a few people that were staring at that didn't know who I was. And that's fine. Who am I? I'm a president.
Yeah.
And someone came up to me and goes, dude, who the fuck are you? And I'm like, I'm Anthony. And like literally every legend came over and said hello to you and dapped you up. I'm like, yeah, it's just this life I've been living. Follow my social media, by the way.
Yeah.
So it never ever gets old. It really doesn't. I don't know how this has all happened. It makes no sense. And like I said, I would consider most of them friends. Some of them I'm closer with than others, such as like Allen Houston. He wasn't a Knick, but he was my favorite non-Knick growing up. He was a great friend of mine, Kenny Anderson. Especially Alan, man, like things I've been through in my life personally, like losing my little sister. Alan Houston, like they were all supportive, but not like Alan Houston, man. Alan Houston came to the hospital multiple times, and it's just like you never dreamed of any of that stuff. And it's like I said, I've been doing it now for a very long time. I interviewed John Starks the first time when I was 21 years old. That was 19 years ago, and it doesn't get old. Like I said, I still get the chills when I talk to those guys, even though they're regular. Because I do think of being little Anthony, being 13 years old, 12 years old, 16 years old, loving this team so much. And then sometimes I had to be like, wow, like I can't believe this has happened in my life, and get a chance to be, so close with the Knicks organization, doing all the events and the content I've done over the years, and the trust the organization has in me is something that I get choked up thinking about. That they not only do they let me do so much with my events and all the things, is that they trust me, and to get that much trust from the organization is incredible.
Yeah, that's awesome. I wanted to ask you about those because I know about your radio background, right?
Yep.
You talked about interning at ESPN. You turned that into a show for yourself. At what point did the fandom go to the radio, and then you translate that into events? Like, take me through that timeline a little bit in your life when you started to take what you were trying to do for your career and then turn that into what happened at MSG now.
Yeah, for sure. So I went to the Connecticut School of Broadcasting back in 2004, which is really just a 16-week trade school. It was awesome. I got through it, and I was just working a regular 9 to 5. I was 20 years old at the time, and I said, listen, at least I tried something. Let me go back to my 9 to 5. I was working for the city, for the New York City Board of Elections, and then I miraculously got an internship at ESPN Radio. I had no credentials. I just went to the 16-week trade school. What happened was I was going to a Yankees playoff game. It was game 1, Yankees Twins 2004. I believe it was Johan Santana versus Kevin Brown was the matchup. And I was walking into the old stadium on 161st and River, and outside Stan Sports Bar was ESPN Radio was set up. You had Wally Matthews there. Tom Keegan was there. A gentleman by the name of Steve Hart. He was the promotions manager at the time. So I went up to them. I said, hey, what's up? Big fan, big Yankee fan, but a much bigger Knicks fan. I'm really excited about Jamal Crawford and Stephon Marbury this year. I was talking to the guys for a few. And I said, you guys need any interns? And they said, yeah, sure. Call our boss. His name's Aaron Spielberg. Tell them you met us and see if you can set something up. I literally called at 9:01 the next day. I was like, hey, Mr. Spielberg, I got your number from Steve Hart and Wally Matthews. They said you may need some interns. So Aaron's like, sure, send me your resume. Now, they're probably getting resumes from kids that are at Fordham, at Syracuse, big major schools. So I send my resume. I'm like, I got my 16-week little trade school. I was a newspaper boy in high school, and I was working for the Board of Elections. So he doesn't even call me back, and I understand that, and I just keep calling him and keep calling him and keep calling him. Finally, he's like, Anthony, can you come down for an interview? I'm like, fine. I'm like, oh, of course. Like, down for an interview. It goes pretty well. He's like, what experience do you have? Nothing, but I'll do whatever you want. And like, I'm in the interview, like Michael Kay walks by. I'm like, this is crazy, And he's like, all right, I'll let you know. I'm like, you can't tell me now? Mind you, I'm 20 years old. I have nothing to lose. And he's like, all right, fine. Can you start Monday? I was like, for sure. I was like, oh my God. Like, at this point, I'd like never accomplished anything in my life. And I'm like, wow, I'm going to be interning for ESPN Radio. So I started that Monday. And the first 2 months, I went there 3 days a week. I screened phone calls. I got Michael Kay and Stephen A. Smith and Don LaGreca and Brandon Tierney, their food when they wanted, their coffee. And I did it with so much passion, so much love, so much joy. And then around January, after 2 or 3 months of the internship, they said, did you want to work here? And I was like, sure. And so I didn't really start getting paid till the spring. But, I got to go back to the interview. So Aaron said, all right, so you'll be getting college credits for this, right? And I was like, of course. Fast forward now, I'm trying to condense the story so it's not like a 3-hour story. So when it got to the spring, they were basically like, when do you go to school? And I was like, yeah, I don't go to school. They're like, wait, you don't go to school? And I was like, no, I just wanted to get my foot in the door. I did finish, like I finished the program. They're like, wait, you're not going to school and getting credits? And I was like, nope. They're like, that's actually pretty impressive. You're quite the hustler. And I ended up getting hired, and I worked there for 4 years as like a producer behind the scenes, but I got to do so many cool things and so many relationships that I still have to this day, you know, working with Stephen A. Smith, working with Michael Kay, working with Brandon, working with Don LaGreca. So it was such an awesome experience. Because of that job, that's how I really got to get really cool with the New York Knicks organization. At the time, the ESPN radio was on the 17th floor of Two Penn Plaza. The Knicks were right below. So whether it was being on the elevator, you know, I got cool with so many people in the organization. And also I had season tickets. I was going to every game. And, you know, I was helping produce the Knicks pre and post. I was 21 years old, helping produce the Knicks pre and post game shows with BT. So I was rubbing shoulders with, you know, with Walt Frazier, Johnny Andres, Gus Johnson, Spencer Ross, Mike Breen, you name it. Like, was, you know, and I was only 21, 22 years old. And that's how I built my relationship. That's how my relationship started to get built with the New York Knicks.
Yeah, and you know what? It's an amazing story of just the grind, right? You talk about, you know, being the hustling intern and just loving it so much, right? And I think, and you could correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think I will be, but it was the genuine passion, right? And just the humbleness, right?
Yeah.
Just to connect, how almost like what advice would you give, you know, that hustling 20-year-old?
And you know what helped? You know what I think helped looking back? The Knicks sucked at the time. They were so bad. And it was like, they're probably like, this guy really loves us.
Yeah, if you love it then, you're never not going to love it.
And that's the thing sometimes, like I talk about now, which I got to do a better job of I'm not doing anything crazy. And sometimes with the Knicks getting really good, sometimes I get frustrated because you see all these like influencers that are at the game acting like they care. But where were they for Clarence Weatherspoon? Where were they for Larry Brown and Herb Williams and Mike D'Antoni to Jeff Hornacek to, you know, David Fizdale? They weren't there.
Right.
And then you get these like dopey influencers that are at the game. They act like they care. And so I get so upset about it. Not that I'm throwing balls against the wall or anything.
Yeah.
It's like these chumps never cared. You know, like I've literally dedicated my entire life between taking care of my little sister and the New York Knicks. I have like dedicated my entire life to those two things.
Yeah, there's not many like it. I wanted to touch on, you know, something that obviously some of or most of the people that follow you on social media know about. You know, you touched on it, you know, the dedication to your sister and the adversity and things you've overcome in your life. And, you know, just, you know, amazing to, you know, when I heard about that and saw it a little on social media and then learned more about it over time. But it truly is amazing how you were able to lean on the Knicks family, as you talked about before, and just what you were able to do and what kind of person you are. And I'll obviously let you touch on it more.
Thank you. And when she got her first brain cancer, she was 10 years old, and it was in the summer of 2010. She was diagnosed just a few days after LeBron made his decision to go to Miami. You know, I'm like, funny brain work.
Yeah.
And
it's easy to remember things that way.
Right, it's hard to remember things too, based upon not just Knicks memories, but like a time in my life. So maybe it could have been in August, and I remember something, and maybe the Yankees did something that day, or maybe like a hip hop album came out that I liked. Right. Anyway, so my sister's first cancer in 2010, and social media at the time was still pretty new. I was building a following on Twitter, and I used to use Facebook a lot more. Don't use Facebook as much anymore. But during that battle with cancer, I was, like I said, building somewhat of a following of Knick fans, and Knick fans that I obviously didn't know personally that were just following me on social platforms. I mean, again, there was no Instagram yet. This is 2010. Just rallied around, you know, my sister who was 10 years old, you know, fighting for her life, you know, and I'll never forget that. To this day, you can go on Twitter right now and type in the hashtag win for Gianna, and you will find tweets going back to 2010, 2011. And they're all still there. And it gives me chills.
Right.
And so that, I think I also think I did good work,
right.
With the shows and stuff, but I that really, made my relationship with the Knicks fan community so much bigger. Even to this day, my sister now has passed away almost 4 years, and people still stop me at the Garden and send me messages to this day about how they were so inspired about, everything, I went through with my sister and all her courage and my dedication towards her and her dedication towards, living, her dedication towards, never giving up, and that's, the heart of a champion.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's when everything, again, never met. I think, I've seen you now and then at the Garden, maybe in passing, but, you could feel, somebody's presence sometimes. And people always want to talk about the negatives of social media today, right?
Yeah.
Like, I think that's
the negatives too.
No, don't get me wrong. There are, but when stories like that and hashtags like that, and I remember you saying something about a Knicks winning streak during it, right?
Yep.
So
said the famous 7-game winning streak in 2011,
right.
when the hashtag started.
Right.
Like, that to me that story doesn't even make sense. Like,
right.
I could tell the story and you'd be like, yeah, he lied. That story, like, I'll tell it real quick, but like, that story doesn't even make sense. So at the time, I was going back and forth to Boston because my sister was doing radiation treatment in Boston. So I was going back and forth like 4 or 5 times a week because I had a 9 to 5 here, and I was going to the games. So, sometimes I had different family members stay with her or some friends. I was going back and forth. So the time, it felt like the Knicks had just gotten mellow. There was 9 games left in the season. The Knicks had fallen out of a playoff spot. And someone gave me the idea to start a hashtag. And I'm like, I'm going to start a hashtag. How are you talking about? So I was like, all right. So we were playing Orlando that Monday night. And if you look it up, that game was actually a rescheduled game from a game that was supposed to happen in November of 2010. They got canceled because of an asbestos scare at Madison Square Garden. So I was like, all right, we'll do a hashtag. So I was like, all right, everybody use the hashtag win for Gianna, which who's not going to get behind that? Fucking 11-year-old girl fighting brain cancer for her life. Yeah. So that Knicks, like I said, the Knicks had lost like 30 games in a row before that. It was probably like 4 out of 5, but it felt like 30. So played Orlando that night and we won. Okay, win for Gianna's cool. And then we had a game a few nights later. I forgot who it was against. Was it Cleveland? I got to look at the whole 7. But we had now we win 2 in a row. Then there was a game against Toronto. Win for Gianna. Everybody's hashtag win for Gianna. 3 in a row. And then 4 in a row. And then 5 in a row. At the time, the streak got to 7. It was our first 7-game winning streak since 2000, 2001 season when the Knicks had Glenn Rice on the team.
Oof. Now we're really dating back.
Well, actually, no, excuse me, my bad. The Knicks had won 8 in a row 3 months before when Amari was on fire. So it was the second 7-game winning streak in 10 years. And the 7th win in a row, actually, the Knicks were down 1 with a couple seconds left in Indiana, and Melo hits the game winner. And like Spike Lee tweeted it. I just, it was on, people were tweeting like, who's this Gianna person? And like people finding out the story. And then, the Knicks ended up getting swept in the playoffs. But those 7 games where I remember somebody tweeting me that I had never met in person was like, yo, that was years later. They were like, that was like a winning streak from God. Because, like, again, like winning 7 in a row for like the Spurs, the Lakers, the Celtics, that happens all the time. The Knicks, look, they don't win 7 in a row. And they just randomly won this 7 games in a row when the hashtag started. It was, especially that last one versus Indiana. It was a Sunday night, and Melo hit the game winner, down 1. You were just like, what is happening right now? Like, this is crazy.
Yeah, no, and just bigger. And we mentioned this on the show, from time to time, bigger than basketball, right? And
that was out, yeah.
Those were one of those moments where,
yeah, like it was just like I said, you could find the hashtag still, and It was just unbelievable.
I know it's in your Twitter bio too. Still.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, absolutely. It was just, it was something that I'll never forget. And unfortunately, we got swept in the playoffs by the
Should have won. Should have won.
I was at that game with my sister.
Should have won that game.
She was in the middle of radiation treatment. God, I looked at pictures from that day, and she was so tired, man. But she came. It was a Sunday night game.
They were up like double digits at half.
Double digits, and then the last play, the second to last play of the game, Ray Allen hits that corner three.
I remember.
You put them up. So we were up one, I think. He hit the three, put them up two, and then we didn't have any more timeouts. Melo comes down, chucks up a prayer, and then game two, we should have won too. That was
Melo had the monster game, right? 40-something,
6 points.
Yeah.
But then Jared Jeffries dropped the ball.
I remember that series.
Also remember Chauncey Billups got hurt in game one, who was playing great basketball. And then in game two, Amari Stoudemire threw out his back doing a 360 in the layup line.
All right.
You can't make that up. It's crazy. So, but it was definitely a time in my life that was, it was very rough, but a time I'll never forget nonetheless.
Yeah, and you know what? So many big Knick fans, and, we talk about, there's a ton of them out there. Right? I don't know about quite like you, but there's a lot of them out there that don't get the opportunity when something in their life comes up, where they could lean on the organization. And
right.
for you, that also must have been, as we talked about before, something really special. Here's a team that, because, I don't know if you've ever heard this expression before, because when people, why are you so into it? What do those people do for you? And like, you really can't, no one can say that. No one can say that to you.
Right. No, it's true. Bronx Tales of my favorite movies.
Exactly. That's what I was getting at. Yeah.
When Sonny says, does Mickey, if you're behind in rent, Mickey Mantle ain't going to pay your rent. And I can say, like, I love the Knicks, and the Knicks have loved me back. The Knicks do love me back. And I know, not everybody, and it's all an organic story of, I think, just being around and being a decent person, just being around at the guard, being around in the building. And eventually you're getting cool with, security guards and ushers and the people that work for the team and the players and the former players. And it all of a sudden it goes from people to people that are your family.
Yeah, I think there was a game that I saw. D-Rose went to go dap up Breen, and then right after that he went to dap up you. And I'm like, wait, who's that? Who's that guy going behind Mike Breen right now to dap up D-Rose right now? So, yeah, man, it's all true. And I actually wanted to ask you a question. We talked about it before. I even texted you about this with, the watered down podcasting and everybody and their mother coming out with a podcast, right?
Right.
And not only that, but
every topic.
Now the players though too. And I want to ask you how you felt about this with, some of it I think's really good, and then some of it's like, all right, that guy probably doesn't need what it. And who am I, honestly? I just love I just love connecting people, and have loved the game and have loved the Knicks. So like, I do this at from my heart, and truly do love it as well. But like, did you ever think we'd get to a point? Now, you're a podcast pioneer. I know when you started your stuff. I know what year you date back to when you did it, before a lot of people were doing it. But how do you feel about a guy like, whether it's Draymond or Paul George or JJ Redick, now he's becoming a coach? Like, these guys are talking about the games in season. I think it's cool to get that access, but do you think that there's a negative to it? And what do you feel about new age media?
It's interesting. That's a good question. And I don't know if I have an exact answer. I texted somebody today, actually. I said, 20 years ago, we didn't get enough from the players. Now we get too much.
It's true. Yeah.
So like, I mean, obviously, if it's not affecting your game and stuff, like, do I watch every Roommates episode? No, I don't. But does it affect their game? I don't think so. I think everyone's using Josh Jalen as an example. Like, those guys are going to play hard no matter what. But it's probably getting to a point, everybody has a voice. We've always all had a voice, but now because of social media, even more. Also, there's a lot of money in this shit. You could be the 9th man on the freaking Portland Trailblazers, and some app says, start a podcast. We'll give you, I don't know, $5,000 an episode, $1,000 an episode. Like, all right, cool. And like, you just like, it probably is too much right now.
Right.
Yeah, it is probably too much. But it's probably, maybe I could see it slowing down at some point.
Right.
But
The pendulum swing.
Someone like Draymond obviously is way different. Like he'll play in a game and go record a podcast right after in the hotel. And that's crazy. Yeah, I can see the pendulum swinging where maybe it like chills out, but that's everything now. Everybody has a podcast. People have podcasts about everything. Like there's 6 billion podcasts. There's 6 billion Knicks podcasts. I don't know. Like, I'm not saying a lot of Knicks podcasts, they don't know they don't know their stuff. I don't think, like, I don't know. I grew up in radio. I grew up studying the greats like Chris Russo and Mike, and get to work at ESPN radio and started my own show in 2005. So I always came from like a radio format. Welcome to the show. You're live. You want to make sure you get through the segment. And podcasting, I feel, is a little different because it's just kind of like you're just talking. Mm-hmm. And I feel like to a lot of these shows that people do nowadays, it could be any topic, Knicks, this, that, this. There's really no art to it. It's just like,
you took a lot of pride in your craft.
Yes, I took a lot of pride in my craft and the setup, and like, you start off the show, you do an open, you bring in the guests, you take phone call, however you do it. I don't think people were just hitting play on their, and also it's so easy to do. If you did a podcast, if you did a show back when I was doing it, I had to sign up for Blog Talk Radio, things like that.
I did that as well. I had a blog. I remember Blog Talk Radio. Yeah.
It is so easy. You just click, StreamYard, this, that, hit play, ask someone to click on, you tape something. So it's so easy to do now. Anybody can do it, but I don't know if everybody can be great at it, though.
Absolutely. And this is not to toot my own horn at all, but I have a fear of being unprepared. So whether it's watching a game 2 or 3 times, whether it's going through your page and taking notes on that, like I just think like you said, some people might just go out and hit play. But I think when I was growing up, it was WFAN. I remember.
And also now, not only that, people are going for the viral moment.
Yes.
Even if it's a 30-second moment, everybody's trying to, I don't know if you've seen this on TikTok and social media. Everybody's trying to have, I guess, their hot 2 moment.
Yeah.
Have you seen that?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So I use that as an example almost. Everybody's trying to get their hot 2 moment, whether celebrating after a game. So I look at even like the celebrating after the games with the Knicks. I don't know if it was all genuine. I believe, I know that's weird coming from me.
Yeah.
That's coming from me. I can't say it was all genuine. I think there was a lot of people just looking for a moment. I'm sorry, I believe that. I'm not saying this. I was the happiest guy in the world coming out of all those playoff games. I was.
Yeah.
I do think some of the celebrating was looking for their hot 2 moment.
Well, you talk about the side street, New York, and all that stuff. Like I was out there, and I have my phone out, whatever. I had some texts from people like, "Yo, get into side street, grab the mic." It's like, guys, to me, this is basketball heaven. No matter what, I don't need to go be in front of a mic and scream in front of that. Like as much as those videos can be funny sometimes. Yeah, I don't need everybody like screaming and yelling about. Like, listen, let's dance, let's have some fun. That's great, but like you said, everybody remembers that video where the guy. This is no shade on anybody when everyone's like going crazy and stuff. It's fun, but like you said, it's that they're almost looking for like that viral validation.
And then that person thinks because they were in the video for 2 seconds,
right,
that they should be treated like a god for the next 100 years. So their video for 2 seconds. It could be any topic, by the way. I'm not talking this Knicks. I'm saying in general. So yeah, it's definitely interesting. So everybody, whether it's on a podcast, I think a lot of people are looking for like that viral moment. And sometimes things are funny, but sometimes I think things are set up too.
And for me, and you brought this up too before, like I remember going to bed WFN Steve Summers overnight like that. Like if someone asked me who would I want to have on the most right now, it would probably be someone from the media. Like the first name that comes to mind is Mike Breen for me. Like I love that side of it. I've always been attracted to that side of it as a young person. Like I've always been fascinated by that work. Like I know what goes into it. I know how hard it is, right? So there's an appreciation for greatness. You've already mentioned some of the names and the Mount Rushmores as we've had this conversation. I think people get lost in that. And like you said, think that it's just, all right, let's go on record. Let's do it. And let's get that moment. But as terms of the Roommates show and Josh Hart and Jalen Brunson, as a Knick fan, it is pretty cool. I don't think they kind of slowed down in the playoffs a little bit, right? They focused
Perhaps
on
they should.
yeah, exactly. And they did like these 2-parters and stuff. They brought on all these great guests. Those are conversations that they're having amongst themselves and talking the game. Like you could tell those two guys are real hoop heads. So
right, and
they're not
actual like real friends. Is that like
yeah.
A lot of times I think with celebrities or like athletes, they'll be like, yeah, that guy's my brother, but like they just say what's up to it. Like Jalen and Josh are actually like real friends. So it's like they're just shooting the shit. It's cool. You know what I'm saying? I like it. It's fun. It's entertaining.
No, definitely. And also, I would like to at some point get to what we have to look forward to now as Knicks fans. We're in the heat of June, which now for us is a little bit different than the past off season, right? We'd
usually be really excited for obviously we have some picks, but we'd have a top 3 pick and there'd be 18. It'd be a bunch of draft parties, but thankfully we don't.
Right. So you hope they get better there. Do you think, I'll ask you about a couple different guys that I'm interested in your opinion on. Mitchell Robinson, I'll start with. And I know he's a very likable guy, it seems, right? He started the season last year. He was incredible for those first 25 or 30 games, right? All the second chances he created. We know what he does on the defensive end. I thought his discipline in terms of not fouling had really improved. That's something that I've noticed with him. But obviously the injuries are a concern. And I love Mitch, and again, got better, shoots it at 40% from the line and not a great offensive threat. Is he someone you expect them to move on from? Because I know that talk has been...
Man, I would love to keep Mitch. I'd love to keep Mitch the next 10 years. I wouldn't be shocked if he was gone, especially with the play and the emergence of Isaiah Hartenstein. And I do expect Isaiah to be back. Even if a few other teams offer him a couple more bucks, I feel he's going to stay in New York. Just my gut. I would be sad to lose Mitch. But I understand the Knicks want to move on. He is very injury prone. And, but if the Knicks keep him, I'm not mad at that, but I wouldn't just trade him for nothing. Like we have enough draft picks. So you can do in the draft picks. So like if it's a trade that helps us, great. But like if you want to stick with them, I'm not mad at that either. But it is tough because especially, he came back, he had injury in December. Yeah, hurt in that game. The play-in game, not the play-in game, the added game because of the tournament, because the Knicks lost and the Celtics lost. So we had to play that game that Friday night.
Yeah, we got the Celtics and the Bucks were like the 2 extra.
Yep, I went to that game that Friday night in Boston. Mitchell Robinson, I heard he came back towards the end of the year, and he started to play really, really well in the playoffs, and then he got hurt again. So I wouldn't be shocked if he wasn't on the opening night roster, but if he is, I'm by no means upset.
Well, listen, it's you get attached, as we saw with we saw with the Quickly and Barrett stuff. Like I had to get a lot of people off the ledge there after that trade last season.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, a lot of people were like, "Man, I don't know about this Anunoby guy. There's no way that we got enough there." And so it leads me to this point about Anunoby because this was expected, right? He wasn't going to take the $19 million.
Yeah, most players always opt out when they take a couple more bucks.
Right, no question.
But him opting out wasn't like, oh my God, I can't believe it.
As much as I do agree with you with Hartenstein, because all season long I was a big advocate of his. I think he just perfectly fits in with this group, and he's very unselfish. No one fit in more than Anunoby. This was right away. This was right away.
Unbelievable.
I personally would be shocked if he wasn't back. At Hartenstein, I would be somewhat surprised, but it's like, all right, I maybe took a couple more bucks. Was it the Thunder, whatever other situation it was? I would be surprised with Hartenstein. Anunoby would shock me if he wasn't in it.
Well, especially because of the trade. You gave up RJ Barrett and Emmanuel quickly to bring in OG Anunoby, 2 very popular players. So it would be pretty insane if OG Anunoby did leave, but I don't know how good his relationship is with Nick Nurse. Now, he's the head coach of the Sixers. Obviously, OG Anunoby played with Nick when he was the head coach of the Toronto Raptors, won a championship together in 2019. I do expect OG to be back. I'm not that worried, and especially after how good we played with OG, even in the playoffs without Randall, with the lineup was Isaiah, OG, Josh, Dante, and Jalen. It's a must you bring OG Anunoby back, but OG Anunoby also has to stay healthy.
Yes.
he has to play, 65 plus games, and he can't get hurt in the playoffs again. Because as much as the Knicks were injury bugged in the playoffs, with Mitchell Robinson going down, Bojan Bogdanovic going down, even with those two going down, if OG Anunoby does not get hurt in game 2, the Knicks still win that series versus the Pacers. And I think even without Mitchell Robinson, even without Bojan Bogdanovic, if they just had a healthy team, obviously let's say the Josh injury and the Jalen injury didn't happen, right? With OG, I think we had a chance to beat the Celtics. I'm not going to say we 100% beat them. They earned their championship.
Yep.
But it's funny because game 2 versus the Pacers, obviously.
I was there. Yeah, I was there too.
And that was a game I did not host an event for at the Garden. So I was actually sitting in the 5th row of that game. And that night was absolutely electric, by the way.
Unbelievable. I still get goosebumps thinking about it.
OG went out and didn't come back. I saw him, his leg went like the other direction, and then you walk back to the bench. I'm not going to say I knew this 100% because I'm not Houdini, but I knew we were about to lose the series, even though we went up to, because I was just like, I just knew OG wasn't going to come back. I mean, I didn't know. I was like, I had a bad, I was saying no. And that injury cost the series.
Yep.
So I want OG back. I think what OG provides is absolutely incredible, but he must not get hurt when we need him the most.
Yeah, and what people do forget, and I had to look this up because I wasn't following it as closely, and he wasn't as big of a name, but he also missed the 2019 playoff run with the Raptors.
Yep, he did.
He was a younger player, but that team went on to win the title because of Kawhi Leonard's greatness.
Very stacked with Kawhi.
Yeah. They didn't need him as much as the Knicks needed.
Fred VanVleet, Kyle Lowry, and Marc Gasol. But he did get hurt there. So it is, I love to bring OG back, give him whatever the hell he wants. I don't even look at the salary cap like I used to, but he's got to be healthy when we need him the most.
Yeah, and you know what's funny about that game too? I was at it too. What a range of emotions, right? It's like Brunson goes out. You're like, at the point when Brunson went out, I had never been in a playoff game where I looked too much at my phone, ever. Like, I was. Everybody, like, collectively, you look around. I had a guy next to me who was much older. Googled, is Jalen Brunson hurt? I'm like, you could go on an app and they'll tell you, Jalen Brunson is hurt. But and then
he comes back and plays in the third quarter.
Amazing. Those baskets were amazing.
And then OG gets hurt. And then when you saw OG walking back, you knew he wasn't. Like, you knew he was done for the series.
Yes, and I don't care what Reggie Miller says, and I don't even mean to mention him on this show because he'll talk about the turning point being when Josh Hart went up to that game. Let's think logically about that series. And I want to ask you also about this because you hear finally in this offseason, I don't think the Knicks have to get desperate at all. I think that's common knowledge, right?
No, it's always going to be desperate.
They don't have to get crazy. Like in the past, we got to do this move, and go nuts. But now, speculation, right? You see things come up like the Paul George, rumors I'm sure you've seen on Instagram and social media. Are you team, let's make a trade if it's the right move, or let's run it back? I feel I lean towards let's run our roster back rather than feel like we need to make any drastic changes to the roster.
No, I think, listen, there's always... I'm 100% for running it back. If there's a trade that makes sense, that's why, Leon Rose and Worldwide West get paid the big bucks. That's their job. Mm-hmm. But the main thing we need is, nobody to get hurt, especially when it matters the most.
Right.
I know it was a small sample size, those 14 games after the trade in January, and what we saw in the last 7-8 games of the regular season and that Sixers series with OG. Obviously, Julius Randle didn't play in the playoffs, but if there's a trade that makes sense, sure, but just bring the band back together and let's go to war next season.
Absolutely. And I saw the rumors, and you almost want to get. I did a poll on Instagram. It was like, I think 60% said they wouldn't be interested in George, 40% said they would be, and then if that meant the expense of 29-year-old Julius Randle, I'm sorry, I'm not even entertaining that. That was if you could match the money with some other guys. But sometimes in situations like these where the way the offense was flowing, I don't mean to continue to mention January because I think that comes up a lot. We want to talk about January. But obviously, we would have loved to see a full group together in April, May, and then hopefully June. But we could assume there's an assumption that this can translate. This style could translate. We were running on fumes. I know you defend Tibbs. I'm a Tibbs defender too. So I know you don't put much stock into guys running out of gas. We saw we saw some freak injuries, but these are professionals. And I like how the players came to his defense. I expect that.
I mean, OG hurt his elbow, so that's not over you when he too much. Julius Randle went flying through the air and hurt his shoulder. And everybody says, well, the Knicks were up 17. They were up 17 with 4 minutes and 50 seconds to go. But also, it was a 10-point game like 80 seconds before. And also the Heat still had their starters in. So that's BS. You know what I'm saying? So I don't know why it has followed Tibbs so much. I think it started with the Derrick Rose.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So you know what's interesting? I was watching that game live, but I actually forgot the score. So people will say, you'll be in the bar. I'm just making, be in the barbershop, you'll be in the bar. Right. People will say, oh man, when Derrick Rose got hurt, the Bulls was up like 30 points and Tibbs got in the game. It was like a 10-point game.
Well, even if there's a minute to go, how many of those have we seen get away?
Right, but it wasn't. People were acting like the Bulls were up like 70 that game. The Bulls were up 10 or 12 points when Derrick got hurt. And also, and I love Derrick Rose, the way Derrick played as a young player, probably, unfortunately, an injury like that was probably coming. I don't think it was because of Tibbs. Derrick will admit it, he played one way. Really, really fast and really strong, really hard. So unfortunately, I don't think it was because he played him an extra 30 seconds. Also, practices in the NBA are not what they used to be. So like on off days, guys are like, they're working out, but they're not going crazy like they were in the 90s. Mm-hmm. And also like, the minutes thing is weird with the fans. Like, for example, do you want, I'd ask a fan this question. Do you want Jalen Brunson to get better at basketball? What's the answer?
Of course.
Yeah. How do you get better? You play.
Yeah. So, you get coached hard too.
Right.
Getting coached hard is it?
Do you want guys to not play over the summer? Mm-hmm. I'm really confused that they really I don't know. I don't know if it makes a difference if a guy plays. Now, are there some games when it's like we're up 25 with like 2 minutes left? I guess. But I don't know. I still think it's a big deal. I really don't forget. And I'm not a professional athlete at all, so I don't. But Josh talked about it. He's like, bro, what's 30 more seconds? I don't know why they count minutes. So, and obviously, listen, all sports fans, especially New York fans, are going to find things with their coach.
Yes.
There were Yankee fans that hated Joe Torre. It's always going to happen. There was Knick fans that hated Van Gundy. So
Pat Riley,
same thing. So they're going to find something. With Tibbs, it's that. But unfortunately, is whenever there's an injury, it's going to be because, it was overuse. Like Jason Tatum wasn't playing 40 minutes a game, or every team's best players play a lot. The exception, I don't know, maybe the Spurs and stuff, they do some weird shit. But for the most part, I don't know why it's followed Tibbs so much. And what major injury did the Knicks have that could be cause of? I don't know. It's weird, and I feel bad for Tibbs. I really do.
I've heard you defend him at length. I heard you. You don't have to tell me twice. I'm one of those guys that I don't want. Here's the argument. I think you'll enjoy this one. All we heard about for the last decade, and the Spurs started it, load management. That's all we heard about.
Right.
And then people started complaining, they would have never lasted back then. They would have never played 82 games. Now you got a couple guys that want to do it, and we have a group that wants to do it, but now we're doing it too much. Now we're playing too many minutes. Now we're, now we're overdoing it. So people want to have their cake and eat it too. And like you said, they'll find a complaint. The thing that I've appreciated most about Tibbs is when he changed the culture of the organization, right? They brought him in. He changed the culture. And moving forward now, I have confidence in him. I've seen him make adjustments. Now, have I seen him get out coached by perhaps an Eric Spoelstra? Yeah, those are some of the best coaches in basketball, right? I thought he had a decent series. I think he did what he could have done in this Indiana one. But, he's not perfect. No one is. But I think he's the right man for this job.
He's a perfect guy for this job because the players are all dogs. They want to be coached hard. They want to play hard. Mm-hmm. Even if you go back to the COVID team, that team, they basically had the same roster the year before. Obviously, they added Derrick Rose midway through, and they won, 5 games with, David Fizdale and Mike Miller. And, Tim took that same roster and got him to the playoffs, got him to number 4 seed. So, but this current Knick team, Tim, is the perfect fit because they are dogs and they want to play hard and they want to be coached hard.
Definitely. And, and I know you've heard this many times about that old school in the 90s, and everybody talks about, players being soft these days. And that's what, when you watch hard, and I coach youth basketball, so it's nice that now when the Knicks are good and they're playing a model that you could preach, right? You say, hey, go watch that guy play. He sets a bunch of screens. He'll dive onto the floor. It's easy. It's nice. And it's refreshing.
And that's why I'm actually kind of shocked that so many Knicks fans, you're right. For years, they said they wanted that tough basketball back.
Yeah.
Oh, we have it. And they're like, well, Jalen played 37 minutes. He should have played 33. And I'm like, what?
Yeah, exactly.
You were the same guy 5 years ago that was begging for tough basketball. I'm confused. I don't get it.
Yeah.
I think it's just the culture of complaining. People just like to complain in general.
Definitely. Yeah. And I, what I get it, what I've respected you from afar, and I've told you a couple of times already, but this is a stance I'll always take, is I'm going to find the positive in something. Like, and now it's a lot easier, as we talked about. It's a lot easier to do right now. Yeah, that it's been in a very long time. So for guys like us, we could rejoice, right? We have an opportunity going forward to root for a team that, as long as, a lot of things need to be in place. But to me, as much as I love Julius and what he did early on in his tenure here, it starts and ends with number 11. And him playing, finishing 5th in the MVP, and now looking what he could do to get better. And what is he going to do in now his 3rd season as a Knick? We've been waiting for a guy like this for a very long time. Haven't had guard play, and this is not hyperbole, since Frazier at this level in this organization. So if he leads us like he has, I'm always going to think there's a shot.
No, Jalen Brunson is incredible. I ran into somebody. I was upstate a few weeks ago. And I ran into somebody that I know, and he, we're not that good friends. And he's like, I'm so glad I saw you. I want to ask you a question. And I said, yeah, what's up? And he said, what's it like watching Jalen Brunson? And I was like, honestly, man, he is one of the most incredible, crafty, smartest, toughest, most resilient basketball players I have ever seen. And he is an absolute joy to watch.
You can't put it much better than that.
Can't?
No, and for me, it's the IQ. You love you got to be really athletic in today's NBA. Obviously, I don't like when people say, "Oh, this guy's slow." Yeah, maybe compared to the fastest guy in the league, right? He might not be unbelievably athletic, but extremely smart, right? We know about Rick Brunson and being a coach and being around the game and being a player's son and all that stuff. But like you said, joy to watch, great footwork, and glad he's on our side right now.
Absolutely, he's incredible. And I hope one day he'll be leading us to a championship. But like I said, can't make that guarantee, but I can guarantee we're gonna have a chance for a very long time. And like I said, as a sports fan, sometimes all you can ask for is a chance.
Yes, sir. And it beats the alternative, right? It beats what we had gone through. And also, before we go and lock off here, I obviously appreciate you, man. And
my pleasure.
Had a great time talking to you. And, going forward, we do not want to rush our summer. I know I enjoy my summers. You've enjoyed your summers as a Yankee fan more than I've enjoyed my summers as a Met fan, unfortunately.
Although I'm not into baseball like I was. I'm going to the game Wednesday. Like, I used to watch a Yankee game from the 1st inning to the 9th inning, and I just can't watch baseball. I just don't follow like I used to. I think when we were kids, and we're similar ages. Right. Like when I was a kid, I could tell you the second baseman for every team. Wow. I couldn't. Obviously I know the whole Yankees roster. I know a good portion of the Mets, but I couldn't tell you the second baseman for the Seattle Mariners. But I know back in the day it was Joey Cora. I have no clue. That was so random. I have no clue who the center fielder for the freaking Reds are. I have no idea. But I feel like back in the day, also we're just consumed with so much stuff. You know,
Well, your life changes, right? And,
life changes too, right?
priorities are in order, different things. But what's been great for you, and we've talked about it, is you've been able to kind of merge the two worlds, right? And it became the Knicks over everything. And I feel the exact same way. And no one really, there's few fans that I can even think of, or, talk about celebrities and guys that have watched the team, but just from your social media presence and now just getting to know you a little bit here, there'd be few guys that would deserve a Knicks championship more than yourself, man.
Thank you, man. And thank you for having me. Definitely love to do it again.
Yes.
And yeah, it's gonna be a fun, chill summer, but we'll be back in the fall.
Yeah,
ready to roll.
Yeah, be in touch. I'd love to run into you at the Garden, man. I'll be at
hit me up, my man. I got you.
Yeah, I'll be out. We'll definitely do it. And again, shout out to Johnny and Sharif and everybody for making this happen. And love those guys, and definitely appreciated chopping it up with Anthony MSG, Anthony Donahue, the biggest Knick fan in the world.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.